Good morning, everyone. How's everybody going? Good? Yes. I know you guys have all been partying last night. I know Ignite is always tough in the morning, so I really appreciate all of you guys being here. I know it can be quite tough at Ignite. Let me introduce myself. My name is Vlad Catrinescu. I'm a SharePoint MVP and a PowerShell MVP, and I'm here with my good friend Drew Madelung from Wisconsin. How are you doing?
From Wisconsin, yes. Also an MVP, working on the SharePoint practice, or working with the SharePoint team for a long time, and looking forward to show you guys some of the really cool stuff you can do with site provisioning, and really how to take this back into your enterprise.
Awesome. So how many of you are SharePoint people? Good, you're in the right session then. Before we start talking about the solution, let's first of all look a bit at the problem. Why do we have almost 500 people in this session today? As you all know, the way that people work has changed. People, as they work today, they expect all of their stuff to be instant. I need to work on this. I need it right now. I cannot wait 2 days for somebody to create me a site. And that's the experience that they get when they actually work with consumer tools like Dropbox, Trello, and others I probably shouldn't be naming in a Microsoft conference. And as we all know, that hasn't always been the case with on-prem SharePoint. I always say that technology is a great magnifier of skill. If you know what to do with it, you're going to create great things. If you don't know how to use technology, you're really going to mess things up. And I think SharePoint, and especially if you look at some tools we had to customize SharePoint in the past, like SharePoint Designer, that is a great magnifier of skill. You have users that you give them Designer, yeah, sure, go customize your site, and they're going to create workflows, they're going to add some cool content types, some really cool things. And then you have that user that is like, master pages, I don't need Seattle, let me delete Seattle right here. And then they go to you guys as IT, and they're like, yeah, I don't know why my site doesn't work, I didn't do anything, just deleted a few documents. Because master page is a document, right? So what happened, because it was so easy to kind of mess SharePoint up, is that IT wanted to control everything. They were tired of fixing corrupted sites, restoring backups. They're like, no, we don't give users access to anything at all. Whatever you want to do, you open a help desk ticket, and we'll do it for you. What happened because of that is that IT became the bottleneck. IT didn't have the resources anymore to keep up with the work, because let's face it, the amount of work that we have to do nowadays has greatly increased. We do have better tools, but we have a lot more to do as well. We work on 10 different projects at the same time, and it seems there's one popping up every day. So what did people do? They either say like, hey, I already have a team site. I'm just going to add more users in here, and we're going to manage 5 different projects in the same site collection, because IT takes 2 weeks to give us a new site, and by the time they do, that project will be over. Or even worse, they just get out their credit card, talk to their manager, like, hey, can I expense $100 for this project? Like, yeah. And they go buy Dropbox or Google Drive. And it's even worse. You're now into shadow IT. You have no idea how your users collaborate. And that's why, even if you look at Microsoft out of the box, the way that tools are looked at today is always to empower the end user. And as IT pros, I'm sure you've seen it as well. A new feature comes in, it's enabled by default, and in a few months, we'll give admins a way to see where it's enabled and how to actually administer it. All the new tools that are made to empower the end user, the power user. But what has happened is that end users are not the most tech-savvy people, right? They're like, ooh, I have Planner. I'm just going to create a plan to manage tasks. For a project I already have a group for. But they don't know that there's a planner in each group. So they're like, I'll just create a planner and put tasks in there, and then they realize they have tasks in 2 different groups because they have no idea. They created another SharePoint site, another mailbox, another stream, another team, and they come to you and they're like, hey, IT, can you merge those 2 groups really quick? Can you do it by the end of the day, right? And it's 3 p.m. And that's something that we can't do. It's not like we have a button, merge group, or something like that. Not yet, and I don't think it's actually going to come. But so what has happened, because we went from a fully controlled way to a fully open way, is that IT was like, you know what? I only have one governance option. I'm just going to shut it all down. So block group creation tenant-wide, and then you just migrated your on-prem provisioning problem to a modern provisioning problem in Office 365. And you don't actually, nobody wins when there's friction between IT and business users, because everybody loses productivity, everybody has more work to do at the end of the day. So our goal for this session, and I think it should be our goal for every governance and provisioning solution out there, is to find a balance between productivity. Why is that moving? For productivity between end users, for end users, and security and compliance for IT. So what do you guys think? Is that a pretty good goal? Yes?
Yes.
Awesome.
And let's talk a little bit about site provisioning itself. So let's go into what a standard site provisioning process begins with. And you all kind of have this basic framework of what site provisioning is going to be. User has to enter something. Something's going to have to happen, potentially an approval, potentially not, but there's an action. So you have an end user doing something. You then have what happens after that action. Does the site automatically get created? Is there an approval? If it's denied, what happens? Is the user aware of that? How does the user know to keep up to speed with what's happening in a provisioning process? And after that, the site gets created. But this is your base framework for what a site provisioning process is. And when you look at what the tools that are available to you in Office 365, like how do we build onto this? How do we take that basic framework and put that into what's available to us in Office 365? And that's how we have a new toolbox. We have a new toolbox powered by Office 365 and powered by the Microsoft Cloud solutions. And when you have these different cloud solutions, you're going to have a collection of things that you have to do. To start with that, you first need to understand what different templates or how we're going to create a template. When you think about a site provisioning process, you have to have something. You have to start from something. You have to have something that people want to use. You have to have a reason why we're doing this, and that's the template. You then need to have a way that the user requests it. What is that going to be? What happens after that user requests that again? What are we going to use for an approval process? What are we going to use to then provision that site? What are we going to use to provision different entities, different things inside of that? And there are a bunch of different options for this, whether it's out-of-the-box Microsoft solutions, whether third-party solutions. When you think about your process, you can bring these things together. And then the last part is going to be administration. Do we need to have a site index list? Do we want to know different metadata about the sites that we're creating? We do. With templates, we're going to start there. There are a couple different options to create templates in Office 365. The main two we're going to talk about today are going to be site designs and site scripts, how those kind of are becoming the new designing and templating process for us for SharePoint sites. And we also have the ability to have, using PnP provisioning, the PnP provisioning engine. You can actually take a copy of a site with PnP and apply that to another site that already exists. And you can also bring these two things together. On the form side, we're going to be working with PowerApps. I asked Vlad if I could do InfoPath, and he said no. I thought it would have been a good idea. I hear that's the new rave. But we're going to build our entry point in PowerApps because it's not necessarily connected into SharePoint, but has easy connectors to interact with SharePoint data. For the approval process, we're going to be using Microsoft Flow. Right? Built-in approvals, not having to use the SharePoint Designer workflows for the approval process anymore. We can approve things we can approve our flows and our site creation actually on our phone. We did that this week for some of our testing. And then to provision it, we're going to be firing everything off back in Azure. Right? So serverless computing that we will be using. And coming from the IT Pro side, both of us were on the IT Pro side, we wanted to run everything in PowerShell. That's kind of where we started. So could we do this in PowerShell? And the answer was yes, we could by using Azure and Flow to trigger that. And then on the admin side, since we're all SharePoint people, right? Let's use SharePoint to trigger this stuff. Let's use SharePoint to monitor this. Let's use SharePoint to track our metadata about our sites, to track ownership, to track information about what we want to control from a governance standpoint. And once you get through all of that, you're going to have your modern provisioning solution that is governed, that you know what's happening. The end users know what's happening because they're aware, because they'll have access to that site information. The admins will be aware of what's happening with their sites. If an approval needs to happen, that's OK. If it doesn't need to happen, that's also OK. And to get into that, though, you still need to figure out what people want, right?
Yeah. So the first thing you're going to need to do as you build up your templates is find out what people want. And if we look at all of the SharePoint sessions for the last few years or so, everybody was like, talk to the business users, talk to the business users, don't talk to IT. But the problem is, even if you don't like them, you still have to talk to IT, because if not, they're just going to turn it off, like we mentioned previously. So when we talk to the end users, don't talk tech. They don't know the difference between a topic and a blank communication site. They just want to know, what do I work with every day? Okay, I work with projects. I work with partners. I work with my team. So try to understand what IT users, what are the different workloads that they have, who are the people that they collaborate with. Is it internal people? Is it external people? Or is it both? And you also need to talk to IT. It's like, what keeps you guys up at night? Why don't you want to enable, just open it up to everybody? Is it because you want an approval on the sites? Is it because you want to add certain classification? Is it because you just want to be the boss? Try to find out, what do they actually want? What is the problem? Why do they want to keep it controlled? And funnily enough, sometimes you're actually going to learn that IT, like the rest of people, we want to do less job. And a client I had recently was like, okay, talk to their IT department. They're like, I don't want to be approving those project sites, because every time I get a project site, I have to manually email the project owner in the form, and then simply, if he says yes, I click yes. If he says no, I click no. Why don't you just send the approval to the project owner instead of going through IT? I'm just going to slow things down. So by talking to both IT and users, you're going to learn what they want, as well as who should approve things. What does IT want? What kind of regulation and compliance you're going to need to put in place for both of them to be happy. So then we have identified the different types of sites that we're going to have in our organization. Project management, document repository, communication, team collab, and partner collaboration. And that's where we map them to actual technical things. That's when we say, hey, for our project management site, they need to manage tasks. They need to have instant communication. They need to have a mailbox. So we're going to create them an Office 365 group. For a document repository, it's just a document repository. Why create a full group with everything else that comes with it, when now we have the option to create a modern team site that is not group connected? And also for each one of them, for maybe a document repository, they only need one document library, that's it. For the project, every project has a milestone list, an issues list, and a risk list. I don't know why, but all the project managers, that's how they're used to working, that's what they want. Why create it manually every single time you create a project site? Why not put it in the template? Add the conditional formatting, the list views that Microsoft showed off this week. Add all of that into your template. And then talk about your approval. So for example, for a document repository, no approval needed. For a project site, approval goes to the project owner, and for a team site, it goes to IT. So try to identify what you'll use technically, what do you need to have in the template, is an approval needed or not? And there's not always an approval needed. Try to work and try to think the way that not every type of site needs an approval, because users would love to have that instantly. And if it doesn't bring you nothing and you realize 100% of the sites of this type were always approved, why bother doing an approval? Just give it to them instantly. So we talked building out the templates, identify what users need, what IT needs. Then the next step is to build them out manually in SharePoint. So that will allow two things. First of all, it will allow you to capture that template after. And even most importantly, it will allow users to actually test that template. Because we all know the reality of projects. People tell you, this is what I need, and then you build exactly that for them, and they're still not happy because, oh, but I thought this worked another way, and then you a list in the library were different things. So build it for them, build it in SharePoint, let them actually play with it. Tell them, hey, here's your project site. Work on a project with it. Work 2 weeks on it. Tell me, are you happy with what you have? And after they're happy, look at how are you going to capture that template. As Drew mentioned earlier, and he's actually going to do it in a demo in a few seconds because we don't want to do only slides, especially at 9 a.m. So two main types of provisioning or templating as well. First of all, PnP, which was actually the first solution out there and is the bit more older one, but also gets a lot of cool new stuff. And they're actually going to announce a lot of cool stuff for PnP this week. Allows you to capture a site and things like that. And we also have site designs and site scripts. And the last thing, like I said before, and I just want to re-emphasize on it, let people test those templates. Before you invest all of that time to build out the tech, to create the branding, to do everything. Let people play with them. Let people work with them in a real-life project to see, is that what they really want? So I don't know about you guys, but I'm really looking forward to a demo now. So Drew, can you show us a bit how to do the templating?
Yeah, so what I'm going to start with is a model project site that we put together. And as Vlad kind of mentioned, we talked with the business. So we're in the company called Global Mantics, and we talked with them about what they really wanted. And as you can see, it's kind of a blank site, but there's not much into it. One of the things we wanted to say is we'll empower the end users to be able to build the site after, but we need to give them some specific artifacts to get started with. So one of the first things we did is we actually put out some custom lists and custom libraries onto this site. The template we created actually still includes the new modern column formatting as well. So we have a list to track project activities. We have a document library to track some very specific project collateral. And we actually even have a document in the root document library. We put in some predefined artifacts that the users can then work with. So they know when they come in here, and if Vlad's on one project and I'm on another project, we know that where the deliverables are per project. Inside of this, we actually did nested folders. You could change this to metadata, you could do whatever you want, but we started it, and this is the way they wanted to work. We also have a custom theme on this site. So on this site right now, we're using the custom company theme sample. And Global Mantics, we've recently gone through a change, and we actually wanted to switch over to what's going to be considered the multicolor. Now, I could do that per site, right? But what we're talking about is templating. So what does that look like when we put this into a templated process? So I'm going to actually jump into PowerShell. And what I'm going to talk about is the site design scenario. So what we're doing is we're actually, when a new site is created, we're going to be adding a site design onto the site after that fact. A site design is a collection of site scripts. The site design is a modern template. Site scripts are the actions that are part of the site design that actually do the work. And the design is what the end user works with. So what I've done is we put together a collection of site scripts. These site scripts perform different actions. And there's a lot of different sessions about what site scripts and site designs can do, but this is what this kind of looks like behind the scenes. So I've put together a collection of site scripts to perform certain actions on the site. One of them is the multicolor theme site action. That actually is the site design, is the site action we want to start taking place of, or start taking over our old site action. So we actually went out and we created some new site designs. I'll show you what that looks like. In the site design scenario, you see that's a limited list. The site designs themselves, this is what fires on the site. And you'll see, if I look over here on the right, there's actually multiple site scripts for site design. So they're a collection of those actions. So when we walk through this further demos, you'll see what it looks like when we create an actual project site. But let's say I just wanted to apply that multicolor theme site to my model project site. What I'm actually can do is I can grab that site design, and I can run the invoke site design commandlet. When I run this is going to go back, and you'll see it says it's successful. That site now is going to have the new multicolor theme. And when you package these different things together, right, that's pretty cool. When you package these things together, what we've already done is, let's say we only have to make this change once. We then would move this, now all of the new sites that would be created would potentially be using this new site, or this new site design. And that's what we've already done for the demo, but that's how you could put together a very easy template. You could actually even take this site, bring it out from PnP Provisioning, and build a template off of this as well. So you can kind of use both. Right? You can kind of pick and choose which one makes the most sense for your provisioning process. But site designs and the PnP Provisioning engine are how you're going to kind of proceed with that.
Also, the demo gogs were with us for now, right?
That was the baby demo.
That was the baby demo, OK. The next thing we have to do is build out that user request form. First of all, we're going to need to figure out what information do we need for each site. Because we might have some common information. Like, for example, in our Global Mantics scenario, every site needs to have a title, a description, location, site owner, and a secondary owner. And then maybe for other sites, you're going to need to have some extra information. So for our project management, I wanted to know the cost center, the project sponsor, and the project end date. For my partner collaboration, I wanted to have my partner domain and partner company. This way, as part of my templating, I'm automatically going to enable external sharing and block it to that domain. So try to think, based on the needs that you have from IT and from the business users, what information are you going to need to capture in order to satisfy both demands? For storing the site request, and we have already talked about this, we have chosen to do it in SharePoint. The reason is that SharePoint lists are awesome, allow us to do a lot, to store a lot of information, easy integration with Flow, as well as Power BI. You want to do a report on how many sites you have per template, sites per location, who's the guy that keeps not approving their sites, and you have like 50 sites waiting on approval on a single person. So Power BI allows you to have all of that information at hand. So let me go directly in the demo and show it to you guys. Let me go here. We created a site called Collab Center, and we have created PowerApps to actually capture the information. InfoPath, Drew really wanted to use InfoPath and SharePoint Designer, but it took a few years, but I convinced him to actually go modern. So here I have my new site request. As you can see, you can customize it. I have a really little example here that for whatever user is logged in, they're going to see their own picture and their title. So this is not a final example, but just wanted to show you guys you can customize the form depending on the user that's logged in. So then I'm going to click on New Site Request, and you'll see that even if I had a ton of information before, not all of the information applies to all of my sites. So by using PowerApps, we're really able to create a guided experience. Let's ask them a few questions at a time and only ask them stuff that is relevant to them. So let's create a communication site and call it Ignite 2019. Let's say news about Ignite 2019. And depending...
We're prepping for next year already?
We're prepping for next year.
Okay.
We have to. Depending on this type of site that I choose. So if I choose project management here, you'll see that I have my location, owner, secondary owner, and then all of the stuff like cost center, project sponsor, project end date that have to do with my project. If I go back and I choose another template, I choose partner collaboration, I have my partner name and partner domain. So we made it as easy as possible for the user to enter that information. And because it's PowerApps, we can have it on our phone, in a SharePoint site, in a Microsoft team, wherever that user wants to work, they can request a site, even during a project meeting, because they're always on their phone during meetings anyway. So for this example, let me go create a communication site. Location, United States. The owner will be myself. So Vlad over here, secondary owner. Let's give something to Drew as well. And I have the switch that I had. Is it open to all of the enterprise or not? If I choose no, it will actually not go for an approval. And that's one of the switches that we made. If it's open to everybody by default, it will have to go to an approval. If not, it will be created right away. So I'll request the site. You'll see it's already in my PowerApps. I can view from my phone or from everywhere. Hey, I requested a site, Ignite 2019. It's a communication site, and it's currently waiting to get started. If it's pending approval, I can see that it's pending approval. So that also allows the user to get informed. It's not like sending an email to a black mailbox, and you have no idea if anybody even read it. You know who's it waiting for. You can customize it to fit your needs. So now what happens after this is done? So let's go back to the slides and let Drew take it over.
Let's look at how that works. So what happens when Vlad has clicked that button? Right? What is working behind the scenes? What makes this click? And one of the things I want to really speak to here is that what we're putting together is hopefully ideas for you guys, right? Not necessarily take this and go with it, but these are the concepts. These are the theories. These are the things that you can do. Hopefully this will spark some ideas of what you can take back into your enterprise, right? That example of that Power App, you can customize that to what your business needs. If you're working with different teams, you're working with different people, you can get to that detail, and you can really empower those users, and you'll still have the speed of that site creation. Because site creation in SharePoint is fast now. It is very fast, and we don't want to limit that. Now, when we start going into what the technical process is, what actually happened? So, Vlad requested that site. That was a Power App that was not a list-based Power App. That was actually a full Power App that was connected to that SharePoint list. It's going to fire off a flow after that data is entered in that list. So Microsoft Flow is going to be using the trigger for the site for actual creation of that item, and then is going to do some processing. Because you can't just take that data and just go, right? We'll have data entry points, we have information, but there's going to be having to have work that happens. As you noticed, actually, there was no actual site URL that he entered. Right? We're actually going to be building that site URL for him we want to do any other processing, we're going to put that inside of Flow at that point. Now, depending on the type of site, certain things are going to happen. So the site that he requested is not going to require an approval. If he would have requested all company, that actually in our flow would have flowed out and stopped and said that since this is an all company process, we require an approval for that. Then, in Microsoft Flow, we're going to be using Azure Automation in our example. We picked Azure Automation from the essence of, again, from the IT Pro side, we wanted to do this in PowerShell. And PowerShell can be ran very easily and very simply through Azure Automation. Microsoft Flow also has a trigger or an action to go in and call that Azure Automation job. In Azure Automation, we're using PnP PowerShell for this. If you have not used PnP PowerShell, go use it, because it's a very powerful tool. It can do a lot of things that some of the basic PowerShell commandlets can't do today. And that will also give you the power of the PnP provisioning engine. And that actually is all built into Azure Automation. A few clicks, you can add that module, and it's built in there for you. After that, we want to make sure we keep the user happy. Right? We want to know Vlad needs to know when his site's done. If there's an approval, we need to know. From the admin side, we need to keep that list up to date. So in Flow, we're going to go back in and update our site index list, and then we're going to let the user know, or potentially the administrator know, if there was a technical issue with that. And when we dive a little bit deeper into Flow and Azure Automation, and kind of why we picked these, and a big thing for Flow is that it has the built-in approval engine. Right? If you haven't worked with this, it's a very simple solution to have modern-based approvals. Very easy to work with from the phone, very easy to work with from the browser, and very simple, once you're inside of Flow, to kind of have those hooks and build a branching process below that, because Flow can do that logical branching. It can do conditional branching. It can also have your easy connectors into email. It wasn't a complicated process to try to send an email. Just type in send an email, it will open it up, and I will send an email, or I'll be able to send an email. It also has tight integration into that Azure Automation process. And as I said, Azure Automation includes the PnP modules very quickly, but it can also be scheduled or triggered. So we're triggering this through Flow. You could run this on a schedule if you wanted to. Say every day we'll just process the batch of sites that need to be created. There's a webhook process if you wanted to go a little bit more developer side. You could trigger a webhook and actually have that automation job fire as well. On the credential side, right, what about security? We have to be secure here. Automation can handle that credential management. Once you get into the Azure space, you could go down into that Azure Key Vault scenario and really making sure that your information is secured. And let's say if you're going in from the user side or the admin side, you know that that data and the process of that is maintained. For the PnP templating process, we're going to be storing our template. So when we actually grab a PnP template, that brings a file down, either an XML or a PnP file, depending on what you want to take. That file, we're going to post back up into Azure. So everything we're doing here is serverless. In Azure Automation, then, we're going to go back and say, we created a new project site. Let me go grab my project template, bring it back, and apply it to the site. But we just needed a place to locate. We just needed a place to store that information. So, should we build something?
Let's build something.
I need a new project. So you didn't actually click that. So what project do you want to do?
I actually prepared something here. Since we talked about Ignite 2019, let's do project Ignite 2019.
Okay.
So because I have it on a Power App, like we said before, instead of doing the request on the laptop, I'll just prepare everything on my phone, and I'll click on request site. If the Wi-Fi is with me, that should be done pretty soon. But as you know, with every conference, especially when there's 500 people, oh, there we go.
And I got that right away, right? So actually, what I'm in here now is I'm in Microsoft Flow. And that with the speed of that, it actually came back in, and what you're going to see is we're actually in the flow that's being ran. So he requested a project site. When I look into this project site, what we're going to have is first up here, you're going to see when the item is created. So this is the trigger that started. When the item was created, it's going to get that information from SharePoint. It's then going to do that variable-based processing. So what does that look like? What do we need to do inside of Flow to make the site work? After that, we have our large check. So what is the check that's going to happen? How is that going to work? And that is going to be our main check to say, if it's a project management site, what's going to happen after that fact? Are we going to go into the communication level world? Are we going to go into the project management world? And in this example, we're into project management. So I'll go down here. You're going to see we stopped at an approval process. So we actually went back in. We updated the list item that's there to state that the project is pending approval, so if Vlad wanted to come in and see where that process is, he could. And then we have an approval process that started, which means I'm the approver, so I'm guessing I have a new email in here. I do. So I have an email from pending approval. Right, so this is the email from right now, basically saying that this is the site that's going to be created, and I guess I can approve this one.
And because we're using Flow, you could actually, like you did before, approve it from your Apple Watch, approve it from your phone, approve it from anywhere you are. And if you don't want to do it via email, you go to the Flow Approval Center, and there you have all of the different things that you can do as an action. At the end of the day, go to the Flow Approval Center and approve them or deny them one by one. You don't necessarily have to do it via email.
So now that that's running, I'm actually going to go back into Azure. When I refresh this, what you're going to see is that we actually have a job being queued. And what's going to happen is that this is going to go out and provision the site. And what I want to do first so we'll see that run. We'll see that by the time this is done, by the time our demo at the end, you'll see what this site looks like when it's created. What I want to take you into now is what this actually looks like when it's being ran. Right? What is happening in here that is making all of this tick? So what we're starting with here is at the top of this line, we're going to have all the different variables that we're entering. So what does that look like from a variable perspective? What are the site information that we need? As we walk deeper through this, what you're going to have is we're going to have a collection of functions. So I'm going to scroll down this main area down here for us to start. What does this look like? So what's going to happen is the site is going to come through, and we're first going to see if that site exists. We want to make sure that there is not a site that already created. So if we already started the Project Ignite 2019 site, it would stop. And then depending on that different site type, or depending on the workplace type that kind of comes through, we're going to go out and fire a different function. So what I'll show you is the project management side here. On the project management side, first thing it's going to do is create the new site. Nice thing to note here is there is no approval process in this. Right? The approval happened outside and it happened in Flow, so that we don't have to worry about knowing if the site needs to be created. It's going to just get created because we knew that approval already happened. And this is going to go out and create an Office 365 group powered site. We're then going to do a slight pause in here to make sure that the site does get created. Site creation is incredibly fast. It is much faster than it was in the past, but it's not necessarily it still needs a little bit of time because Azure does run very quickly as well. The next thing we're going to do in here is we're actually going to add that site design. So when I talked about what we actually did before on the existing model project site, we showed what it would look like to invoke that site design. What this is doing here, this is invoking that site design after that site's been created to apply what we have instead of that multicolor theme. We have a site design called project site. And that is the site design that's going to be applied. That's what's actually going to add on our libraries and lists. That's going to add our theme and add on, and do some other things that I'll show you at the end. But that's going to encase that inside of our site design. Then because we're running this as a service, we wanted to make sure we actually maintain the security. So we're going to put some ownership information in there. So whoever requests the site knows that they are part of the site since we're running this as a service. And then we get into a part in here to apply the PnP provisioning. So I talked about having a potential, how do you use both? When would you use both? And there are things that the PnP provisioning engine can do that site designs can't. There are things that site designs can do that PnP provisioning can't. And to go back to kind of what Vlad said, it takes both the end user and the IT team to understand what those needs are, or what you can and can't do. Because you could put something in site designs, you could put it in PnP provisioning, but you and the IT staff, so anyone on the IT pro side, needs to kind of look at what both of those options are and why you'd want to use both of them, or when you'd use both of them, because they do both have some of their intricacies.
And sometimes it's not only all about SharePoint. For example, if we'll be creating an Office 365 group and you want to manage the membership, you shouldn't manage it only at the SharePoint level. You actually need to connect to Exchange Online or Azure AD that's able to manage that group membership. So depending on what your needs are, you're not only into SharePoint. I know we all love SharePoint here, but with Office 365, you actually need to know how to connect to Exchange Online, to Azure AD, and we might have to do things there, dynamic membership, things like that.
Another example we talked about was why not when you create a team collaboration site, why not automatically provision the team? Why not go in and do work? Why not go in and actually provision things inside of Planner for a project site? Those are all things that you kind of put in and think about. If those are the requirements that you have for your provisioning process, you can do that. The tools are available for you to get there. The last thing we're kind of doing on our project site is we're going to apply that template. So we're going to grab our blob, we're going to grab our little file, our little pre-thing, and that is then going to apply that onto the site. So we're invoking the site design, and we're applying a PnP template on top of that. Now, one thing I want to show you is actually what that looks like in Flow. So you'll see that Flow succeeded, so hopefully it all looks good in a second. But let me look down into that project management side, because I want to show you what that does. So we started an approval process. We started the approval process on that project management site request. If the response was marked as approve, not approved, it's actually approve. Got caught on that one multiple times. If it's marked as approve, it will go out and do some, and it will branch and do some specific actions. If the response is denied, we need to know that, right? We need to know that I, as a project sponsor, thought that Ignite 2019 was not, might do it, I might deny it. But if you did deny it, we need to let the end user know. So we need to let them know that they would come in and they would, in the Power App, they could know that the project was denied. They'd have a reason for it. They could resubmit if they wanted. And then we need to make sure we kind of go back and update our site administration list to ensure that people know what happened. So that's what happens if it fails. Now, if it succeeds, inside of Flow, we have an Azure Automation action. You'll see in this action, we can do multiple different things. So it's going to be firing off what's considered a runbook. That runbook is going to do the stuff. So the PowerShell scripts that we're showing you, that's inside that runbook. That PowerShell is being called because I'm firing off SP Provisioning Automation runbook. And all the stuff that Vlad found in all of his governance and gathering, requirement gathering information, whether it's from the site URL, the information about the site, the workplace type, we're actually passing that all through into Azure Automation, and that's where those parameters come into play. And we can use those back and forth in between, inside of that Azure Automation job, or you could think about putting this into, let's say, Azure Functions, or you could really do anything, right? What can you do with, you could do so much with Flow to kind of branch this out. Now, like a good person that I am, I have to make sure it did succeed, because I sometimes write bad stuff. So if the status has succeeded, I actually get the return job to know if that Azure Automation job worked. Did I update the demo too soon? Did Vlad break something? I don't know. But if the status has succeeded, we would want to make sure that we do not send the email or the user an email unless it worked. So I checked to see if it worked. If it did, we're going to actually go back in, and we're going to update the status. And then we're going to actually go back and send an email back to that user to let them know they can finally use their site. And from a timing perspective, that is a very fast process. Now, talk about administration.
Pull it up.
So that site gets created. We have a list called Site Administration. This list is going to include all of the information that's tracked about our site, of all the sites that we've created. So I come down here, you're going to see we have Project Ignite 2019 included in here. You're going to see I actually have details about the site. I have logging included for what happens with the site. I have the URL of the site. I have the status of the job that's been running. And also, we wanted to put together some information as an admin to say, what does this site, what do we know about our sites, right? How do we know what we need, right? Or what are the sites that are there?
And by using Power BI, and as you guys seen, we had a ton of columns in the SharePoint list, but we only displayed the relevant ones in the Power App. And because everything is in that list, we can then use Power BI or any other tool that you like to do BI with to get information from that list. So then you can be like, okay, let's look at this site, Global Mantics, Drew. Hey, I can already filter by, I already know it's a project management site. I can already see that Drew is the owner. And I'm really awful at Power BI, so this can be way better. You can add a lot more logic, a lot more things into it. But we just wanted to show you guys that by using Power BI, which unless you embed it in a SharePoint, it's almost a free tool for all of you in this room, you can quickly create a dashboard. It took me 5 minutes to create. I came like, okay, what does the US, my US division, decides with? Click on US, I see, okay, US is managing mostly project management. They're not doing much communication or team collaboration. So by having all of that information in a single list, you can create reports, and you can actually understand maybe in 6 months, 1 year, what are people creating? What do people need? And did we create a template and it only got created once for that single user that requested that template in the business meeting? And can we get rid of them? So by having the knowledge of what is happening, you can really adapt and continue to evolve your templates and your provisioning engine with real data.
So let's go look at that project site. I'm going to go back into our sites list around there. So when I go to this project site, grab this URL. Call the project.
Yeah, you might have to go into details.
Oh, I gotta go into the details.
I made a URL extra long so you can type it.
Actually, what I could also do, I could go back into Azure Automation, because we saw that job run, and refresh. What we're going to see is I put a lot of logging in there as well to know what was happening with that job as it was running. So when I come back here and I look at these logs, what we're going to see is all of the things that happened. So all of that PowerShell script I walked through, we have all this login information to see where everything that happened. So it paused, it added a site design, it updated our owners, it applied our template, and then actually at the end, grab this, and what you're going to see is a new site. So that's the model project site to start as an example. Come back in here into project 2019. You're going to see it has our site design, it has our new theme, it has the libraries and lists, it has the activities list, which includes the custom column formatting inside of that. And one other thing you're going to see on top is we actually joined it to a hub site. So we actually took in that site design, what we did is we built a project environment that would say, anytime a new project, we want to have a central management of all of our projects. So what you actually have now is in the site design, a new project site is created. It's going to add it to our project hub site, and it's going to now be a part of that. And what we also did is we're actually automatically adding that to navigation. So you don't really need to know when a new project site is created. It's just there. So if I would potentially be working on Project Universe, I come back, and I see that Project Ignite 2019 is there, easy access into that. That site looks very similar, very standardized compared to Project Universe. Deliverables in the same spot, status reports in the same spot. Don't need to worry about kind of bouncing between the two. And you get a full modern experience using a site template, a site design, hub sites, and a lot of other things. Right? How cool was that, right? I mean, that is what we wanted to get to, right? That is what we want to build.
Oops, I'll actually skip to that one. Okay, as we get closer, we know that a lot of the things that we have shown you guys, we went through them really fast. Like site designs, we haven't really shown you guys how to create that site design, but mostly how to use it. And that's one of the things that this was a higher level session, but there are a lot of great other sessions this week. But before we get to the expert resources, some things that we want you guys to remember as you leave this session today. As you build out your templates, is not only talk to business or talk to IT. Talk to both the business people and the IT people. What do they both need to be happy with the provisioning solution? Because if one of them is not happy and you have to get out the hammer, it will not work in the long term. For the requests, only get the necessary metadata to keep it simple. Even if we had a large SharePoint list with maybe 20 columns, as an admin, I don't really care that it has 20 columns. But as a user, I don't have to see all of those 20 columns when I only need 3 for that specific site. And then which one do I make mandatory, which one do I not make depending on the site template? And this is where PowerApps or any other form solution, let's be honest, we gave an example with PowerApps here because that's the recommended solution in Office 365. You could use any third-party tool that you use in the enterprise to create that form as long as you can trigger a flow or any other workflow on it. So try to keep it with what is needed for that template. For the approvals, first of all, it doesn't always need to be approved. For every site template, some of them might need to be approved, some of them might not need to be approved. So try to figure that out with IT and the different business users. If they need to be approved, who needs to approve them? Is it IT or it's the business unit that relies to it? If it's an interest group, it's maybe HR. project might be the project department, the PMO. So it's not always IT. And for the technology, we now have more choices than ever to actually build tools inside of Office 365. And this can get actually quite confusing at the end because it's like, do I use PnP? What do I use site designs? Do I just do PowerShell? Or do I just save site as a template? Don't do that, by the way.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
So it's important that you know what is possible with each solution. Wherever possible, try to only use one. Don't use two solutions for the fun of it. Just, oh, I want to try everything out in the same provisioning solution. Try to see what can you do with site designs, what you can do with PnP. Use only one when possible, but if you have to, they both work together. Some other extra resources for you guys. By the way, all of the scripts, a lot of screenshots about the PowerApps, a lot of the logic will be published on GitHub after. You guys are going to have the link on the last slides, and as soon as Drew finishes up his uploading them, they're going to be there. But something that for site scripts and site designs, BRK 3090 by Sean Squires tomorrow is a must. He's the guy that manages site designs and site scripts, so he's going to be showing a lot of cool stuff. And on the PnP side, Vesa, Elio, and is it Waldek? I think it's Waldek will actually be showing all of the new stuff. Okay, now Waldek. Paolo, okay, my bad. Vesa, Elio, and Paolo will be showing up all the latest stuff in PnP that is available. So those are the must. If you guys found this useful and you want to implement something like this, those are the must-to sessions that I would attend. For the rest of them, it's other cool sessions that for Office 365 admins that we found in the agenda. And that is about it. You have the GitHub URL at the bottom. Like I said, somebody has been late in uploading them, but they're going to be there by the end of the day today. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys found it valuable.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys very much.